2, 1.
Ooh, welcome to the Fourth Line Podcast, part of Full Press Radio. This is April the 11th, 2022. I remember the date. With you today is myself, Carl, and Stevie Nick.
And we got a bit of a gravelly voice, Stevie Nick, today. I'm using my radio voice today.
I think it's going to sound great, but a little under the weather, are you today?
A little under the weather. It took 2 years, Carl, but the COVID finally got me.
No.
It got me.
So what is this is actually the very first time that I think I've even video chatted with someone. What's our COVID protocol?
Well, we need to stay at least 6 feet apart. So you should back up a little bit. Back up from your computer screen.
Can you hear me?
Actually, that's better than normal. You should record from there all the time.
I am yelling. Okay, so I'll step back there and yell. Other than that, we're good?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be responsible and polite of me to try and mute my phone if I have to cough at all.
Or sneeze, or blow your nose.
Or sneeze or do any of that stuff. My nose isn't that bad, to be honest with you. This whole thing, I've been very lucky. My symptoms have not been bad at all.
Yeah, well, I am glad that you're not doing too terribly, and as good as it can be, right?
And hey, Carl, I could be passed out with the fever, vomiting my guts out, and I'd still be here recording with you.
I would hope that when you vomit your guts out, you would also mute your mic, though.
That's how committed I am. I draw the line there. If it's that bad for me, it should be that bad for you too.
Everyone is suffering. I'm not editing that out. No chance. That stays in the show. Hey, remember that time that everyone stopped listening to the Fourth Line when Nick threw up on Mike? It was great.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to turn people off.
Yeah, we can stop the show early. Who says we have to go to July? Just get sick on Mike once. And
yeah, exactly.
Well, glad you're still here. Glad you're pushing through. Hope you stay feeling well. Because I'm glad I was not prepared to learn guitar today to be able to do a solo show. That's what I was worried of. When you told me, it's like, oh no, I don't have any musical instruments ready.
That's what I was worried of too. And that's why, so I tested positive on Saturday and I knew we had to record on Monday and I knew I couldn't leave you to do it by yourself. So I said to my wife, I was like, babe, I need to recover as fast as possible. I'm going to go lock myself in the basement for 2 to 3 days. Don't bother me. Just leave me there, laying down on the couch, watching movies so I can be there for Carl on Monday.
I appreciate it. What was the best movie you watched during your quarantine?
Oh, good question. Good question. I watched a total of 4 movies while I was on my own. I think the most fun one I watched was The Adam Project on Netflix.
It's a good movie. Yeah,
it was good. It was. I wasn't really expecting it to be that good, but it had more of an emotional core than I was expecting.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a little bit like your classic Ryan Reynolds movie, but with the family feel good aspect of it.
It kind of had a bit of a Spielberg feel to it. The emotional core with the little boy.
A little E.T.-ish.
A little E.T.-ish. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was good. It was fun. I enjoyed that. The other really good one I watched was on Amazon Prime. It's called Come On, Come On with Joaquin Phoenix. Bit of an artsy movie, a little slower and more of a character thing. Just a beautiful, beautiful movie.
Sounds good too. I'm not much of a character. No, that's not true. I like some.
You know what? When I did watch, that was disappointing though, because I heard that this one was going to be good. The Last Duel with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. Did you hear about this one?
No.
It's set in 14th century France, and Matt Damon is a knight, and Adam Driver is a knight, and it centers around this event that happens between them, and it results in the final duel that happened in France.
There's been no duel since then?
Yeah. That's my understanding.
That's impressive that there's been no duels in 600 years in France.
It's kind of a barbaric practice. hey, we can't come to an agreement, so one of us has to die in front of 1,000 people.
I mean, okay, that makes sense. I just like, not every duel has to be to the death.
I think they were in France. Were you thinking like Zorro, where he just slaps him across the face with the glove?
Yeah, that's a duel.
Yeah, I don't think duels back then were that cartoony.
And then if there's two of them, it's a duel, and that is a hit. You got back to back.
There's the title of the episode, Carl. The duel.
Oh, see, I was gonna hit us with the COVID protocol.
Oh, I like it.
So now we've got the dual COVID protocol, the COVID duel. We've got lots of time to figure it out.
You could also call it the coffee drought if you want, because I forgot to have an afternoon coffee today. So if I'm a little slow on the trigger, that's why.
I find actually, I was sick. I don't even know. Many years ago, had a little stomach bug in me for a few days. That was how I kicked my coffee addiction. I could not, like, on a Saturday, if I don't have a second, third cup of coffee, I'd have a headache by like 3 p.m. All it took was being so sick that I didn't want to drink coffee. Not addicted anymore.
Oh, there you go. So you don't drink any coffee anymore?
Oh no, I still do, but I don't have I'll have 1 or 2 cups a day. Just enough to enjoy it, but not enough to be like dependent on it.
Yeah. I feel like there comes a time in every 30-something-year-old's life where like I'm drinking way too much coffee and I need to cut it back a little bit, because I did that a couple of years ago too.
Yeah, I did this in like my late 20s. I hit it early.
It's good.
Hey,
it's good.
We're here. We're not just here to talk about our health as aging 30-year-olds. We're also here to talk about hockey.
And there's a lot to talk about this week, I think.
Certainly not tonight in the NHL, though. Tonight, 1 game.
Yeah, what is up with that schedule? Like, it's not a holiday or anything.
No, and here's what makes it even worse. I don't know if you are aware of the schedules of other sports. I mean, baseball is back.
Yeah.
Which is great. Did you end up getting to go to the game in the end?
I did get to go to the game. Yeah, it was a very good game.
So heads up to anyone sitting next or near Nick at the Jays game on Friday. He tested positive the next day.
Yeah. That's like, I mean, that's why that's a super spreader event.
It's a reality of life, right? It's gonna happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
But so it was good.
Did you watch the game?
You went to the home opener,
home opener on Friday.
Yeah, that was a game.
That was a game, man. That was at the beginning was kind of iffy. Like, everyone was in their seats for the first pitch, obviously. And then after the first inning, there wasn't that many people in the seats anymore. Everyone was out in the concourses.
And then they came flooding back in when things started happening.
Huge offense in the second half of the game.
Yeah, that was a good one. Well, so we've got baseball, but NBA regular season ended tomorrow. They've got the NBA's moved to a play-in game format, so they actually have 10 teams per conference that make the playoffs. You think a lot of times you complain about the NHL letting too many teams into the playoffs. Actually, here's a new question. So the NBA, 10 teams make the playoffs. The bottom 4 do a play-in to then play the 1-2 seeds. So 20 of the 30 teams in the NBA make the playoffs. Do you think the NHL should switch and do something like that?
Did you tell me 2/3 of the teams in the NBA make the playoffs?
That is correct.
And we have 16 in the NHL, so just half.
Yeah, half.
I don't think we want to expand it to more teams. It's too many.
I'm fine how it is.
Even the first round is too much to keep up with. There's so much. There's games on every night, all at the same time. You can't watch them all.
Yes.
I do like the excitement and the drama that a play-in series would bring, though.
Yeah. I think that's true. Sorry, I got distracted by something.
Okay.
I think that's true, but then how would you do that? Like, would you then cut down the amount of teams? Because that's what the NBA's done, right? Is they've done like a little play-in thing.
But can you make the wild card spots? You play for the wild card spot. And you make it like a wild card game like the MLB does. It's just one game.
Just one. I think the NHL would lose their mind if, I mean, baseball, it's dumb that you play 162 games and it comes down to one to make it in. But like, I think that would be an issue for the NHL.
Too much excitement? Too much drama?
Yeah, they don't want must-watch TV.
Yeah, no. There needs to be more vanilla than that.
Yeah, I think they would. I mean, because what did they do? I think what the least that they would do is best of 5, because that's what they did when they had the COVID issues, right? And they did like that play-in series. Best of 5 was what they did. I don't know what I just said, but something I said turned on my Google Home outside in my office here.
That happens a lot. I don't like the idea of doing 5-game series. I would much rather keep it 7 game. You know what? I think the playoff format that hockey has is fine. There's a lot of teams in it, but I think it's fine.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. Anyways, needless to say, the play-in for the NBA starts tomorrow. So there is no NBA tonight and one NHL game. So this is literally baseball's world, because no one wants to watch the Jets and the Habs battle it out in what's likely going to be a meaningless game.
Yeah, it's a weird one. And then tomorrow, like every other team in the league plays.
Yeah, it's a busy one tomorrow. So nonetheless, I'm so confused what's happening outside of my house right now.
Do you need to go for a second?
Just 1 second.
Yeah.
I don't know how I did it, but I turned on the news. So
from inside your office?
Yeah, from us recording right now in the studio to outside. Turns out something I said turned on the news.
Well, they're not joking, hey, when they say the news 24/7.
Well, and they're always listening. Apparently, was it when I yelled?
What did you yell about? Don't you have to say like, okay, Google, to turn that thing on?
Yeah, I don't know how.
You never said that. You never said anything about Googling anything.
I'm not sure what happened. Nonetheless, we're back. Let's talk about something we promised we would talk about last week. No, let's wait on that. I have an idea. Okay. News of the week. Auston Matthews on a heater. Yet last episode, you predicted 70 goals for him. He hit 50 in 50. Is Auston Matthews the greatest goal scorer of this era?
I think it's a little early to say that, but he's well on his way. Like, this is some pretty amazing stuff that he's doing this season. And he's missed games. Like, yes. if he didn't miss any games, if he's played in every single game of the season, who knows kind of where he'd be at. But would you be less skeptical of my 70 goal claim?
If he'd played would he hit 70 goals if he had played every game this season?
Yes.
I think that would be very, very doable. Yeah.
So the last player to score 50 and 50 was Mario Lemieux. I don't remember what year that was in. Before him, it was Teemu Selanne and Alexander McGillney in 92-93, which at the end...
You have a very different list than me, but carry on.
Oh, I do? Is it not Mario Lemieux?
Brett Hull?
What year was that?
Oh, I see what's happening. Brett Hull had 50 he had back-to-back seasons, 91-92 and 90-91.
Right. That was before Lemieux. I think Lemieux was the last one to do it before Matthews. Is that not true? We're having a heck of a show right now.
No, so here's the difference, okay? I don't know, what is your source for this?
Twitter.
Okay, so my source for it is Wikipedia.
Okay.
And this is the difference, because there's a list of unofficial 50 and 50 goal scorers, because on this unofficial list, Mario in 95-96 did score. However, it was his 50th game, but the team's 59th game. And so apparently it doesn't count as a 50 and 50 if you miss enough games during it. So he scored it in 50 of his own games, but not 50 of the team's games. And apparently...
But that's true of Matthews. So Matthews would be unofficial as well.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, so as long as we classify it properly.
Right. 50 of his own.
50 of his own. What I was saying is at the end of last week's show, I mentioned the last 70 goal scorers in the league were Alex McGillney and Teemu Selanne in 1993. They also scored 50 and 50 of their own, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
So my point being, I'm not pulling that back yet.
Well, I think even if you look at the fact of playing 50, scoring 50 and 50, if you are the kind of player that's going to score 50 goals in 50 games, you only need let's say you do play all of them, right? You only need 20 in 30 games to hit 70, which is like a 67% reduction in production.
Yeah.
And that is, I mean, definitely doable, right? If you're actually putting up that pace over a season and playing on a team, I mean, the Leafs are a team that right now in the last stretch have been scoring an unreal amount of goals.
Yeah.
Their production, like that, Matthews and Marner are just on fire together. I think that's what's really setting this off is the fact that it's not just Matthews who's going. Marner's been going, and it goes without saying that Matthews is playing the best hockey of his career, but Mitch Marner is also playing far and away the best hockey.
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes deeper than them too, right? Nylander's been scoring. Tavares, not as frequently, but he's been there. Like their big four are exactly where they need them to be.
Yeah, and I think we expected Tavares to start to tail off like he has been. It's not something that he's getting older and he's coming off a pretty big injury last year. And so, yeah.
But he's contributing not entirely on the scoreboard, but in other ways as well to this team. But
yeah.
But is Matthews the greatest goal scorer of this era? I think it's too soon to tell. Do you?
Well, I think if we compare, yeah, I agree. I think if we compare him to Ovechkin, right, who right now is the best goal scorer, and you could say clearly their careers are overlapping for a significant portion, so I'd say they're in the same era. Longevity-wise, I mean, Ovi never did 50 goals in 50 games.
No.
But Matthews has to be able to do this more than he has. And I think in the end, we will see that he is, but I haven't seen enough to say that he is better than Ovi was. Clearly in a 50-game stretch, but you'd look real dumb if you made every decision based off 50 games in the NHL.
Yeah. I think this is a tough one for Matthews and the Leafs because it's historic and it's a huge deal, but you also kind of have to be careful not to get too wrapped up in all the excitement of it, right? Because this team and Matthews specifically, they got bigger fish to fry starting in a few weeks here. And Absolutely. There is more pressure on the Maple Leafs than probably any other team in the league right now.
There's a ton of pressure on them. You got it exactly right there. And I think it is nice. I think in a way, I think this helps them. Like, yes, you want him focused and you want the team focused. But at the same time, if he's chasing after goal records, like this team is playing well and playing the style of hockey that they need to play, and he's scoring. And you've got Jack Campbell back, and you've got, things returning to a sense of normalcy with this team. I think, having something else to chase kind of distracts from that pressure where you're not getting the who do you want to play in the playoffs question. You're getting the, hey, Auston just hit, 60 goals. He just hit whatever. I think that's going to help.
That's a really good point. Because at least with these questions, they can keep their canned responses. It's so easy, stress-free for them.
Well, and it's fun, right? You want to celebrate your teammate. These guys are loving the fact that Austin's doing it, right? They're all in his camp and his corner, and you don't even have to give a canned response. You can just give an honest, genuine feedback.
They don't want to think about the Bruins in the first round.
No.
Which is where this is headed.
Well, let's take a look then. So the playoff picture right now, and let's start in the East and then we'll move out West because I want to talk about a team out in the Western Conference as well. You mentioned the Leafs. They're currently second in the Atlantic. If the playoffs started right now, they would play the Tampa Bay Lightning, who are 1 point up on the Boston Bruins.
I don't know, man. That Atlantic division is a gong show. If I like, it's weird because if I'm the Leafs, I don't want to play either of those teams. But if I'm Tampa, I don't want. No, you know what? If I'm Tampa, I don't want to play Toronto. Give me Boston.
So you think Toronto might still drop down to that wild card with a 5-point lead over Boston with 10 to go?
I don't really think so at this point. But Boston can jump Tampa,
Absolutely.
right?
I don't think that they will, but they can.
They could. And like down the stretch of games, once these teams start clinching their playoff spots, who really knows kind of what, from a coach's perspective and a player's perspective, they're going to decide to do down the stretch.
Yeah.
Because it could be a bit of a rest time for some of your veteran star players.
For sure. Taking a very quick look, and this is where I think I made my thoughts known based on what I thought of without looking at schedule, right? Just quality of team. I think Tampa's a better team than Boston.
Yes.
Tampa also has a much easier schedule the rest of the way than Boston does. They play the Islanders, the Jackets twice, the Red Wings, the Jets, the Ducks, the Stars. They only play 3 games against bona fide guaranteed playoff teams.
Yeah. So they're probably going to clinch that third spot.
So we got Tampa, Toronto, which means we either have, and this is what makes this division system tough, right? Because if you look conference wise, right? Tampa's 4th, Toronto's 3rd. Like, it's tough that they have to play each other. The 3rd best and the 5th best teams have to play each other in the first round. But we are either going to have a narrative of the Leafs continue to fail in the playoffs, which I don't think is fair when you're playing the 2-time back-to-back defending champs, or that the defending champs are knocked out of the playoffs. We've got one of those two, which is going to be beaten senseless. And I'm not here for it.
Yeah, I agree. That sucks. But that's the whole point of this playoff seeding system, right? This is how you get people to tune in and watch the first round.
I guess, what do we just make it a 1-game playoff? Tampa versus Toronto, loser goes home, 1 game.
Imagine. People would lose their minds. That's too much drama, even for me, Carl. That's too much drama for me.
All right. So that means I think it's pretty safe looking at the other matchup. Florida has a 6-point lead over Carolina. I would assume that they keep first seed in the East, which means they would play the lower wild card team, likely to be Washington. So Florida versus Washington.
Yeah.
A good matchup, but surprise. I mean, I don't really know what to think of a Florida-Washington matchup right now.
All I can think of is not quite the Florida-Tampa matchup we got last year, which was such a good series.
Yeah, for sure.
Florida-Washington, I don't know. I can't see Washington surviving that long in that series.
No, I don't think so. And then on the other side, Carolina likely then would end up with Boston or maybe even Tampa. Could you imagine if Tampa ends up as the wild card, we have a Carolina Tampa? Either way, whoever Tampa plays, it's going to be a ridiculous series.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that Carolina Boston series, I think the clear winner is Carolina, but that'll be a good series full of drama and storylines just based on the rivalry they've built this year already.
Exactly. And a pretty deep series too. I think that would be a long one. Then Rangers, Penguins, another deep series there. I think those teams are pretty evenly matched.
Yeah, and they've played each other too the last little while a few times, and it's gotten pretty interesting.
Yeah, so looking at the East, we're set up well. If we head out west, seeding is going to be interesting. We do have we've eliminated them from the playoffs, but the Dallas Stars are currently 2 points up on Vegas with an extra game. I'm not ready to pull them out of the elimination station yet, but are you, Nick?
No, I still think Vegas is going to sneak in. They're just too good of a team, and Dallas is not.
I think we've seen this last stretch. Vegas has been playing very, very well. Disappointing with the big loss against the Canucks this week. This late in the season, you need that's a must win for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, though, a tough schedule for Vegas the rest of the way. A little bit easier schedule for for Dallas. I mean, they play the Sharks, Canucks, Kraken, and Coyotes. The rest and Ducks.
Yeah, watch out for those pesky Coyotes, though. They can play a little rough. Jamie Benn won't take that. He'll just give it right back to them.
No, I don't think Jamie Benn's. Never mind.
Okay, how about this though? Minnesota, St. Louis for a first round.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for them, right? Looking at them with the wild card, pretty solidly locked in there, and it's just right now they're playing for home ice in that first round.
Yeah. But that'll be a pretty good matchup. Like, that'll be a pretty good. It's not even a late game for us here on the East Coast. It's like a mid game.
That would be like the 8 Eastern time.
Like an 8 p.m. start.
Yeah. That'll be a good matchup. Then the other division, right, to the Pacific, and this is the one that we alluded last week that we needed to talk about them. The LA Kings, 86 points, tied with Dallas, so also sitting 2 points up on the Knights. And it actually, to me, I know that they're in a different division, so if the Knights moved up, they actually right now would be possibly even leapfrogging the entire wild card and moving up and knocking the Kings out of the Pacific. The Kings then back into that wild card fight. But Kings are a team that I think for a lot of us, and especially us, right, we kind of went through the season, and the Kings being, especially for you, Nick, right, those games are starting late.
Oh, yeah.
It's tough to watch them. So for a lot of people, the Kings have really snuck up on us this season. For those that haven't really been tuning in, how are these Kings so good when we had very low expectations for them?
It's kind of interesting. Like, I was looking at their stat sheet, I guess, before we started. And it's not like they're getting a bunch of production from these young unknown players, right? Like Anze Kopitar is leading the team with 61 points. Adrian Kempe, 32 goals. Philip Deneau, how's that for an offseason pickup? 44 points. Trevor Moore, 44 points. So it's not like it's not like the Kings have turned the corner on their rebuild and their next young core of players is now leading them forward. Like, Drew Doughty is 7th on this team in points. He's leading all defensemen on the team.
Well, and Doughty hasn't played since March. He hasn't played in a month, and actually just today announced that he's going to be missing the rest of the season with, I think it's wrist surgery.
Yeah.
So he's out. Really, I mean, injury-wise, I think that's partially what's saving this team is how healthy, outside of Drew Doughty, how healthy they have been.
Yeah. And they've had a better, like, they've been pretty consistently good all year, but they've had a better second half of the season than they have the first.
Absolutely. But if you look at some of these guys, and I mean, maybe because I was surprised when you listed Adrian Kempe as not a young guy. And I think because, again, he came in pretty slowly, right? But now he's a 32 goal scorer. And you've got these additions, right? The Victor Arvidsson signing.
Yeah.
Loved it at the time. Still love it now, right? Just a good depth player who's going to play a good, solid role and produce for this team. You've got the likes of the Quentin Byfields and them haven't stepped up like you mentioned, right? Kaliev still kind of finding his spot as well. So you've got some of these younger guys that haven't stepped up. But the biggest thing that's surprising to me is the goaltending production for this team. They are clearly just outscoring their opponents versus stopping the puck.
Yeah. I was concerned about what you meant by goaltending production for a minute there. Thought you were going to start talking about how good their goalies have been, which is not at all the case.
No, certainly not. But even that said, right, Jonathan Quick and Calvin Peterson splitting time. Quick has been the better goalie for sure this season. Which is interesting that they know, right? And this is where I think, heading into the playoffs, being able to lean on one of them You're going to have to, right? You're going to have
Yeah.
to lean on one of them, and keeping Quick healthier, giving him less of a load, I think is going to be a huge thing as they head into the playoffs here.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, they're definitely, if they make the playoffs, they'll play in them, but I don't think they'll play in them for very long.
Well, because right now, as it stands, they would play the Oilers. I'm not sold on. I mean, I'm not sold on the Kings, but I also have seen so much from the Oilers that's inconsistent. Right? You're telling me that I'm going to rely on looking at the Kings goaltending and then looking at Mikko Koskinen red hot right now. That could end any time. And then they've got Mike Smith as the other option. That's not exciting me.
Well, no, but if we're talking about the Kings and how poor their goaltending, not poor, just, they're not being saved by goaltending, then they should be completely dismantled by Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl.
You would think so.
Like, the Oilers should be able to outscore this team easily, even if both sides the goalies crumble. Even if we see a 2010 Stanley Cup final goalie matchup here. Was it 2010?
I was thinking that was the Hawks Flyers.
Flyers, yeah.
Yeah. When you said 2010, I assumed that was the score of the game, and in no way was I shocked by that.
That could happen too.
How was the game? One team scored 10. Oh, congrats. No, they lost. They actually gave up twice as many as that.
20.
Yeah. And then the Flames, right? They pretty much have the West or the Pacific on lockdown. Same thing with the Avalanche in the Central. I mean, Avalanche 13 points up. They've got the first seed. Not official, but as official as it could get. They'll be playing the wild card teams. Let's take a break here. We'll be back on the other side looking at final piece of news of the week and the Elimination Station. Three, two, one.
Back from the break. We're back from the break with more breaking news.
Breaking news.
Glass shattering sound effects.
The San Jose Sharks and Doug Wilson announced this week that he is stepping down as the general manager of the team. 19 seasons. There are players, let me check this. I mean, there are definitely players in the NHL that were not alive when Doug Wilson was not the general manager of the San Jose Sharks. I'm not sure. I don't think there's any on the Sharks, though. But
what year was it? 19 years ago?
19 years as the general manager.
So what year did he start?
He would have started in 2003, May 13th, 2003.
So his first full season would have been 2004? After the lockout. Oh, 2003, 2004. Okay.
Yeah.
Let us see who was on that team that he inherited. Patrick Marleau. Jonathan Chichu.
Ooh, all aboard the Chichu train. Let's go.
You remember that? Marco Sturm. Vincent D'Anfous. Brad Stewart was 24 years old. He had a long career ahead of him then.
No doubt.
Scott Thornton. Wayne Primo. Like, this is the time of the NHL where I feel like I knew every single player.
Mm-hmm.
All these names are familiar to me. Evgeny Nabokov was the goalie.
Yeah, that was a good team that he inherited.
And you know what? He kept it pretty good for a pretty long time.
I mean, so you look at his career, he had trips to Stanley Cup Finals, an incredibly long playoff streak. In those 19 years, they made the playoffs 14 different times. And what? It's been 2 years since they last made it. Is that right? 3 years?
I think it's only been 2 years, hasn't it?
I would.
You know what? I actually have the franchise page open because I had to do that to look up those silly names.
So, Nick, when was the last time the Sharks made the playoffs?
2019.
So it has been 3 years without. So
This
of
is the
those,
third, yeah.
in 16 years, his team made the playoffs 14 times. As much as you can say, like, the Sharks did not win a Stanley Cup, what they managed to build there year over year to bring guys in to retool, rebuild on the fly. Like, you look at what they had, certainly the find of Joe Pavelski and what he developed into was lucky, right? Some will call it skill, some will call it luck. That was lucky. But like, you've brought in like Logan Couture. They're not drafting high in these drafts. They're just continuing to find and scout players well and do an amazing job.
Yeah. 1 Stanley Cup final, 4 conference finals. And the other thing you mentioned about those players is they brought them into a room with Joe Thornton, with Patrick Marleau, and like that team had, it sounds silly to say when you like culture, but that team had built a culture around these guys. And I think it kept them competitive for a very long time. But if you remember, there was drama throughout all these years. Like, remember, Joe Thornton was the captain, and then they stripped him of his captaincy. And he was saying stuff publicly about Doug Wilson in the media. Do you remember all this?
I don't. I'm mostly the biggest thing I remember about Joe Thornton in the media was what he threatened to do if he ever scored 4 goals. That's really the only thing from his San Jose media days that I remember.
It's exactly what I'm talking about when I say team culture.
Okay, so maybe not a great team culture.
Good enough to get to the Stanley Cup Finals, but not win.
Well, and I think, like, yes, it's disappointing that he did not get a Stanley Cup. But you cannot build it. Like, looking at this list of players that they've drafted, in like Marc-Edouard Vlasic, Thomas Hertl, Timo Meier, these are all guys that were not high round picks, but were successful with what they did.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think Doug Wilson ends up in the Hall of Fame as a general manager for what he did, even without a Stanley Cup?
Probably. Yes. I think
as a builder, because he is already in the Hall of Fame for his playing career.
Yeah. I mean, I think having that kind of tenure in this league is a huge accomplishment. And I think the people who vote on these Hall of Fame ballots recognize that. I
said that. Can you go in twice in 2 different roles, or you're just
Is he in already?
He is in.
As what?
I assume for like playing career. He had a great career as a player. Played over 1,000 games.
Okay, we gotta look into this guy's playing career. This is not where I thought we were gonna go with this. Oh man, I guess I gotta search it.
I mean, I don't remember back. It was just like last year that he went in. So perhaps it was for his NHL career, but I think it was more, or for his managing. But at the time, I assumed it was as a player. No,
it must have been as a builder. It must have been. They wouldn't wait this long if he was that good of a player. Let's see. Doug Wilson, Hockey Hall of Fame. Oh, maybe you're right. You're right. You're right, Carl. He was a Norris Trophy winning defenseman.
Yeah, he was good. That's what I mean.
I didn't know that.
That's what I'm asking. Can you go in as a builder and as a player? Or
I think
they
so.
Just give you one title.
I think you can go in as both.
I'm not sure that there is anyone who's done that. That would be impressive.
They put your younger face on the plaque for the player, and they put your older face on the plaque for the GM.
It'd be wild. Doug Wilson, great, but if that happens and he somehow becomes like one of the first guys who has 2 plaques in the Hockey Hall of Fame,
quite the accomplishment. But like what I was like, you could put his management career in the Hall of Fame. A, the tenure, B, the success he had with the team. Like, no, they don't have the hardware, but they were pretty successful. One of the most successful teams over that span of time.
Very much so. Absolutely. Yeah, I think we could see it. Again, we'll have to ask the Hall of Fame selection committee if that's allowed.
I'll shoot them a text.
Okay, thanks. All right, Nick, it is time for the Elimination Station.
Elimination Station.
Welcome back to the Elimination Station. We alluded to it earlier that we've eliminated some teams from the playoffs that are currently sitting in a playoff spot. And we are not, I was going to say we are not emotionally prepared, but we are not prepared at all to take them out because we still think that the Dallas Stars are going to miss the playoffs.
Yes. Agreed.
And it is going to be wild when they do.
We're not taking them out. Don't ask us to take them out. We'll talk about it on our last show of the season if we have to.
Yes. But I don't plan on it.
But other than them, the teams that we've eliminated have been pretty safe teams.
Well, we went through the entire Eastern Conference except for one team. And that is a safe bet all season. There has not been a single team where you're like, could these guys make it in? It's been those 8 teams all year.
Yeah, absolutely. So that one's been pretty easy. The West we've been kind of slow on.
Because we've been picking on the easy side out east. So the teams that are still left, we've eliminated in the East: the Devils, Flyers, Senators, Sabres, Wings, Jackets. In the West, we've eliminated Coyotes, Kraken, Blackhawks, Sharks, Ducks, Stars.
Yes.
We have 3 teams left to eliminate. 2 in the West, 1 in the East. Do you know who you want to eliminate?
I do. Do you?
I do.
Okay.
3,
2,
1.
The New York Islanders.
It's been a long time coming.
Is this the first time since like the first week?
I think the first 2 times we decided to say it simultaneously, we got it. And then I believe every week since then, one of us has picked the Islanders and someone else has picked another team.
But you know what's crazy though? Over all that time, the Islanders have climbed the standings.
Oh, there's a reason that they've dodged the bullet every step of the way.
It is crazy. Like, it didn't occur to me until a couple of weeks ago when I actually started checking the standings more frequently. But like, I remember when the Islanders were never quite dead last because Montreal's had an awful season, but they were bottom 3 in this conference for sure. Yes,
absolutely.
And now there's the second wild card spot, and then there's the New York Islanders. So they've kind of bounced right back. That first half of the season, they could not overcome how bad they were then.
No, they could not. And I mean, Ilya Sorokin has certainly come into his own in this second half of the season, stolen the net firmly from Semyon Varlamov and run with it. And I think that's a huge part of what's been happening there. And I think the other part that's helped them is kind of the bounce back of some of these guys, but scoring in general on the island, they continually like lost players and lost talent. I think it finally caught up with them.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, like the one that really jumps out to me is Matt Barzal, who's had, I think, a bit of a tough go this year.
It's been disappointing.
They've needed more out of him.
He is one of my favorite players in the NHL. He's just one of those guys. I mean, in the same way, I think if it wasn't for the fact that Elias Pettersson plays in Canada and Matt Barzal plays in the States, they've both been incredibly disappointing this season. And I think like Pettersson's underachievement has really hidden the fact of Barzal equally being disappointing.
Yeah. It's too bad because he's such an exciting player. I mean, I don't believe that he's hit his ceiling and now is on his way back down to earth. I think this will be a blip, and he'll be right back at it next year. I don't know, man. The season was just such a disaster for this team that it's almost like one of those things you got to just put it behind you and move on to next year.
Well, so how do they put it behind them and move on to next year? Because when we look up at the standings, right, there's a solid amount of teams that like look pretty firm into next year's playoffs, right? I think we can agree. Leafs, I guess, depending on who they have in net, maybe not the Leafs, but Leafs, Panthers, Tampa, Carolina, the Rangers, right? 5 teams firmly in. Boston could fall back a bit. Pittsburgh could fall back a bit. And Washington could fall back a bit. So that's the teams that they're trying to get up to. How does this Islanders team get to that level for next year?
But don't you think they are at that level? They just had like a few things go wrong in the first half of the season, a bad stretch that went on for way too long. If they could normalize that over the course of the season, they would be right up there.
Okay. I can get behind that. One thing I also think hurt them a lot was their schedule in so many ways, because if you remember back to the start of the year, they had road trips like crazy because their arena wasn't ready to start in yet. Started on that, then had a Western Canada road trip that got fully canceled because they canceled all those games when they weren't allowed fans in the building. Then also canceled like a bonus game in Seattle because they're like, well, we're not going to make you fly all the way out there just to play Seattle. So all of that got canceled. And I think that alone, they had a very tough time at the start of the season, getting into a rhythm, finding things, and just playing consistent hockey.
Totally. And it's weird to think about now because it feels like it was so long ago, but teams were fully having games canceled and rescheduled for a week at a time when too many of their players fell into COVID protocols. Like the All-Star, and the Islanders were one of those teams early on in the season. And the All-Star game feels like forever ago, but that's when they stopped doing the whole COVID protocol screening thing. And we haven't heard about it since. But at the beginning of the year, it was a big deal.
Right. For sure. I mean, there's been the odd, I think it was surprising a couple weeks ago when Kyle Connor tested positive. I was like, oh,
right.
That's a thing that still happens in sports. I thought it was just Nick who tested positive for.
Yep. Just lonely old Nick.
We don't know how.
Whole country, nobody else.
We don't know where he got it from because there's not a case anywhere else, but he found it somewhere.
Yep. Must have been those rocks I was licking last week.
Why would you lick? Was it the rocks that the people who were doing work outside in your backyard touched?
Yeah.
Oh, that's probably why.
That's those are the rocks.
You got to sanitize rocks before you lick them, Nick.
Well, I told them to stay away from my licking rocks. I said, these are the ones I lick. Don't touch them.
I licked them yesterday. I'm going to lick them again tomorrow. Stay off. The good news, though. So if that's the case, that this team is what is good enough to get back in, because there's very little that's going to change with this team next year. Like everyone on this team is locked up, aside from a few defensemen, but none that are game changers, right? They need to give Noah Dobson a new deal, but everyone is back. So we might have some trades, but essentially this Islanders team is what we're seeing.
And I'm okay with that. Because you know what, Carl? 8 months ago, before the season started and we were doing our season previews, we didn't have this team in the elimination station. Right? Like we were talking that it was going to be a bit of a rough go to get into the wild card for the Eastern Conference. Because is it going to be the Islanders or the Capitals or the Bruins or the Penguins? Like the Penguins have been better this year than we thought. So have the Rangers. But like I think the Islanders are there. They had a rough go this year. They got to put it behind them, move on. If you see similar results next year, that's a different story. We'll be having a different conversation. But I think this team is going to be okay. They just got to put this behind them.
Who knew that the loss of Jordan Eberle shook this team so much that they couldn't get it figured out until February?
It's got to be what it was. Yeah.
He's the glue. He was the glue. Well, there you go. Elimination Station settled. The Eastern Conference is fully locked down. We've eliminated all 8 teams necessary in the East. We've got 2 more to do out in the West. And looking at it, I mean, we've still got some teams to pick from. We have not eliminated the Jets yet.
Nope.
We somehow have not eliminated the Canucks yet.
Nope.
We've not eliminated the Knights, the Kings, or the Predators. And I think 2 of those teams got to go.
Yeah. I don't know, man. We'll see. A lot can change between now and next week.
A lot can change this time of the year. We've got lots of games happening, a ton of close matchups, which brings us to looking at next week's schedule. The Pavel Bure must-watch games of the week, where we take a look at the schedule and we tell you every night of the week which game is the most important. And I need to give a little apology to folks, because I, being the one who tends the Twitter and sends out the results of the games, had a busy weekend, did not get the scores out. I'm hoping to get them out tonight after we finish this show. Everyone's so good about it. They're kind. Even when sometimes I miss a point, they just kindly tell me by yelling at me that I missed it. And so thank you for your patience. But we'll be back this week every day for the game that needs to be watched. You're going to head to Twitter at Fourth Line Podcast and tell us who you think will win the game and the score of the game. We do that every night of the season. We've only got, season ends on the 29th. So we've got 18 more days left in the NHL season, 18 more chances to do this. Who knows what we're going to do for high sticking come playoff time? Because I'll tell you this, 4 games a day, it's going to be fun.
Oh, yeah. Can't wait for the playoffs. But until we get there, let's pick some games to watch this week.
Tuesday, what are you looking at?
So there's a lot of games to pick from on Tuesday.
You did mention that earlier. 2 that stand out to me. Oh, there's 3. There's actually a lot of matchups of playoff teams, but one that has big implications, Dallas and Tampa.
Oh, let's do it. I like that one.
I know that I asked you what you were looking at and then answered, so I'm just going to ask you and shut up this time. What are you looking at on Wednesday?
Less games to choose from, so that's better. Let's go LA Kings, Colorado Avalanche.
Well, that's what I was... another good one, though. Never mind. That was the one.
That was the one. Yeah.
That was the one. You are correct. Thursday, multiple games with multiple teams in playoff positions. Thursday is a great night of hockey.
Thursday is going to be very good. Do we want teams that are in playoff spots locked, or do we want to watch a maybe team?
Well, so we already had Dallas. They're fighting for it. Calgary, Vegas, the other team fighting for it.
I think that's going to be a good game.
It's going to be a good game, but it's also, it's win or not. But you mentioned teams in it. We do have Washington and Toronto playing that night too, as well as Minnesota, Dallas. So important games.
Yeah.
Friday is a dud day.
Woof. Should we pick the Islanders game since we eliminated them?
Islanders, Habs. Not being picked was Jets, Panthers. Apparently the Jets and the Habs play on days when the NHL is like, we don't know what to do today. We're just going to shove those teams
that?
There.
Weird one.
All right, Saturday, games start early. 12:30 Eastern time is the first game, and there are 3 of them in that time slot. I guess getting them out of the way on the busy Easter weekend. Oh, that's why there's only 2 games, because it's the holiday on Friday.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Still doesn't explain today, though.
No, you have no excuse for it today, NHL. What are you thinking?
I was going to pick a later game to give so you didn't have to remember to do it first thing in the morning. But there's only one game later that I'm going to watch. So I immediately went to Pittsburgh, Boston.
Pittsburgh, Boston is a good one. We haven't had any in the East. That is a noon 30 start. So make sure pay attention for that one. Noon 30. Sunday. Ooh. Got an interesting one in my eye. I'm looking at Blues Preds.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only playoff matchup.
Blues
Let's
Preds
do
it
it.
is.
It's a Western Conference heavy week.
It is. Now, it looks like the NHL is like, okay, we need everyone's playing their division. We're going to switch it up because Monday has a lot of cross-conference, cross-division games. There's only one game that has multiple teams in the playoffs. Washington, Colorado?
That'll be a good game.
It'll be a weird one.
Yeah, but it'll be the best game that night.
Yeah, I think so too. So there you go. Those are our must-watch games of the week. Head on over to our Twitter at Fourth Line Podcast with the number 4 to play. Tell us who's going to score, who's going to win every game, and the score of that game. TheFourthLinePodcast.com to find out more about the show. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so that we are waiting for you every Monday evening, Tuesday morning, whenever you listen to us. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining through this season. Let's get into a great time of the year. The NHL season sometimes can feel a little bit long. This is the best time. So thanks for joining us. Until next week.
We hope that you enjoyed this Fourth Line Hockey show. I know what you're thinking. You don't want us to go. I hope you enjoyed my sexy radio voice tonight. Please tune back in next week where I'll be back to normal, back to being high-pitched. So you have to turn down your speakers to listen to me. So until next week, folks, keep it real. Signing off, Nick and Carl.